Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are ready for our third day of the Hangar Talks. We will be starting exactly at 10 a.m. sharp, so please grab your coffees, have your seats, and be ready to be inspired. Good morning again. The first session we have for you today is not a session and not a story you will be hearing a lot of. The amazing pilot we have coming on stage had his first bush flying experience when he was only 24 hours old. Not years, no, 24 hours old. This incredible pilot is a legend in bush flying. He started training within aviation when he was 14 years. He started his first solo when he was 14 years old. When he was 16 years old, he got his license, and today he lives and breathes bush flying and aviation. He has more than 35,000 hours flying. Please give me the biggest round of applause for Captain Paul Claus. Captain, we're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. And what a privilege it is to be here. And a big special thank you to Sultan for the invitation. It's been a long time. We've talked about it for a lot of years. Sultan first visited us in our wild place in the Wrangell Mountains in 1986, I think it was. So.
Oh, wow. And you live in Alaska and you fly in Alaska, and your entire life is only about aviation.
I have been very blessed.
Yes, and I spoke to your wife and daughter as well, and they are both aviators, correct?
Our whole family flies, yeah, and there really isn't any other choice. We all love flying, but the reason we fly is because it is a tool to do what we want to do, and what we want to do is explore the wilderness. And we live in a very wild place. This is a map up here of Alaska and Canada and Baffin Island and all that. The red line is a trip I took to Greenland, but that's another story. Won't go into that. But in the far left-hand corner over there, you can see where the red line starts, and that's where we live. You see all the white there?
Oh, wow.
That's all glaciated areas. And in my presentation here, you're going to see lots of glaciers.
That's completely isolated and completely in the wilderness, correct?
Right.
I've read that even for you to get your groceries, you actually have to go bush flying to reach somewhere that sells groceries.
Right. I have to fly 100 miles to get my mail.
Oh, wow. We would love to know, why did you and your beautiful family choose, number one, aviation, and choose to live in the wilderness in Alaska, completely isolated?
Well, I guess that's the reason right there. It's spectacular. We live on a river that's 150 miles long, and we're the only human beings on that entire river. There is no other way to get there than by air, either a helicopter or an airplane. No other way to do it. And so, yeah, the reason to do that is somehow we had to live there and still make a living. So we have a Part 135 air taxi and a lodge, fly-in lodge that Sultan's been to a couple times. And yeah, it's been a privilege to live there. I've got a lot of pictures, so I'll kind of go fast through these.
Yes,
and we
please.
have a video at the end here. And so this is Sultan this year, and my mom is standing next to him there on his right, and Logan, our youngest daughter. And
that's a beautiful picture.
Yeah. So here's Sultan exploring in a glacier inside of an ice cave, and probably no other human had ever walked there before. Where else can you do that in the world, right?
Like a true adventurer.
And that's, you think that water might be cold? Sultan can attest to it being quite cold, huh? Here we're enjoying it. And you'll see in my presentation, I've purposely put in numerous pictures of sand dunes, because we're kind of proud of our sand dunes. But coming here, you guys got a few more than we do. This is my father on the right, and he came to Alaska in the mid-50s, and he was also a very accomplished bush pilot. On the left is Atlee Dodge. He's one of the manufacturers of bush modifications to Super Cubs and Cessna aircraft. And both of my father and him have passed away now. They're in an albatross there. They're exploring the Aleutian Islands. So I have to continue to reiterate that the airplane is a tool to do what we want to do, and that is explore the bush. And of course, most places you go and land, you probably are the only person that's ever been there before. And so you have to be prepared.
That gives you a feeling of independence.
We take things like small pack rafts along so that we can float the rivers, exploring the beauty. That's what we like to do. And our main tool of choice is a Piper Super Cub. We have 7 Super Cubs, and they're equipped with these great big balloon tires. And yeah, these are our Jeeps. We live in the largest protected landmass, a national park called Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, and we're only allowed to use aircraft. We only are allowed to use fixed-wing aircraft. We're not allowed to use helicopters.
So, Captain Paul, we would love to know why bush flying in particular, and what made this passion come to life?
That's a good question. Bush flying, what is bush flying? What really is it? To me, it's just being able to go into places where there aren't anything approved. There's no approved runways. I fly 1,000 hours a year, and at times, and most of that is 90% of that is off airport. So, in the background there is our turbine otter. It's a 1,000 horsepower Garrett powered, and that's the first one with a Garrett. TPE-10. So here we go. This is not Saudi Arabia. This is Alaska. This is actually the middle of Alaska, and it's a sand dune that hardly anybody ever gets to see, and it's in the middle of nowhere. And I took my youngest daughter there, Logan, a few years ago, and we explored it. We use these Arctic oven tents, which are like little yurts, but kind of like what you see around here, I suppose. But maybe not the trees, but.
It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
So Alaska has sand dunes too. These are wolf tracks.
Are you sure this is not Saudi?
Yeah. And another part of our business is science related. I fly for NASA. So Sultan, of course, has been in space, but there's 3 aircraft that are used by NASA for glacier research. And the Turbine Otter is the privately owned one I own. And we do all the glaciers from southern British Columbia to the Aleutian Islands twice a year. And the other 2 aircraft are owned by NASA, and they're flown in Antarctica and Greenland.
No wonder.
So here we're actually on a science project here, mapping some of the glaciers that you see in the background. And the mountain in the background there's called Mount Fairweather. And this is a very nice day, obviously, but it's not normally that way. And along the way, you see some of the mountain creatures. Here is a glacier that is just opened up. This crack just exposed, and the water that's on the surface is spilling into it. Now we're planning a trip across Alaska from the North Pacific to the Arctic Ocean on the 141st degree parallel. In order to do that, you have to have a lot of gas. Yeah, we stopped along the way to get on the Klondike to get an ice cream bar at the only other place there was. Nowadays, with modern technology, bush flying has made bush flying a lot easier. Well, some parts of it easier. Technology, you can look on Google Earth and have an idea where you might be able to land. And on this particular trip, I pre-plotted all these positions where I thought I might be able to land a heavy Cessna 185. And the goal was to land on the 141 line or within a walking distance of it. And we did that. It was a 4-day expedition, and we were able to land along the way. The next thing that's changed bush aviation over the years is the satellite telephone, satellite technology in general, GPS, satellite technology. But this has made it much safer, I guess, in a way. It's taken a chunk of the wilderness out of that, but it's a necessary evil, I guess.
I mean, the views and the pictures are not, they are not regular places you would see with a regular runway and for any other aviator that is not specialized in bush flying. I'm sure you've had multiple stories with very dangerous circumstances, correct?
Yeah, you'll...
And it looks like it as well. We would love to hear one of your most difficult situations while you were in one of your bush flying experiences.
Well, I guess those are the kind of things you kind of put out of your mind. One time I had a sheared a crankshaft. In fact, there's an AD on IO 520 engines now because of what happened to me. I was the first one that had a crankshaft failure, and it was over the largest non-polar ice field in the world, and I spent 4 days up there in my underwear. So it was a long 4 days. I didn't have a drop. I had stripped the airplane of all the survival gear and everything that I should have had in the plane because I wasn't going to have an engine failure, right? But anyway, I did. That was it. All turned out good. The airplane was salvaged and not hurt. So
you say that so casually, Captain, as if it was just a normal day.
You know, with 35,000 hours of that type of flying, I think just about anything that could happen has happened. I guess what I pride myself in is that I have never hurt myself or any other person. So that's what I. But as far as this is the kind of terrain we land on. Things like that. It's you do that every day, day in and day out, and then you're going to have some trouble occasionally. Alaska moose.
But it looks so much worth it.
So in the wintertime, of course, we put the airplanes on skis. This particular Super Cub is our lightest one. If anybody follow Valdez Air Show, there's a fly-in there for STOL competition, short takeoff and landing. And I've won it, I think, 7 times with that airplane right there. And that's a stock 1953 Super Cub. It hasn't been modified.
And all of this is in...
I'm sorry?
All of these pictures are in Alaska, correct?
Correct. And most of them are right around our place. But we also have a ski season. That starts up, it's our first part of our season. It starts in March and goes through May. And so soon we'll be doing that. We do a lot of mountain climbing. We have some of the biggest mountains on the planet right there. And even our airplanes ski, so we get to do turns with our airplanes.
Looks like a very healthy airplane.
And you got to wonder who the pilot really is here. Will the real true pilot please stand up?
Your whole family are pilots, even your dogs.
Yep. a moose and a newborn baby. Every year the moose antlers drop off, naturally shed, they fall off, and it's one of our pastimes. So we fly around kind of like a egg hunt or something. We fly around, look for the shed moose antlers and land and pick them up. This is a trip to the Arctic and the northern part of Alaska, the Brooks Range. There's nothing like the freedom to be able to fly in a bush plane and explore the wilderness.
You have no limitations, and
exactly.
It shows within the pictures.
And here, of course, we're using old-fashioned techniques. It's called a map. Anybody ever heard of a map? I get a kick out. Nowadays, it seems like people more and more don't know how to use a map. And if that GPS ever goes away, I tell you what, there's going to be a lot of people that are lost out there. But we still are old-fashioned and still use the maps. And here, this is high-tech technology here. We have a satellite connection with the internet. We're able to use the internet in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, technology's there. It's amazing.
This is so free. I mean, just looking at these pictures, without a runway, without
this is a Saudi Arabian family here that came out to visit us, yeah. And you got to be tough to live in Alaska. Even the flowers are tough. They even grow through the snow.
They find a way to make it.
Yeah. Camping on a glacier.
My God. Just looking at these, Captain Paul,
this would be a place you wouldn't want to camp under. And that really is that steep. The hardest part about this place was to try to get the plane to be able to stay there once you got out of it. Had to dig a hole under one tire to anchor it there, and it's pretty steep. And landing in the snow on wheels, that's not a smart idea. And that snow is about a maximum amount of depth that a wheel could take without nosing the plane over. And this is a glacier called Icy Bay, and glacier flows right down to the salt water.
I can't believe this. I mean, I don't see a runway in any of these pictures.
I've heard a lot of talk about Kodiaks here since I've been here. Everybody's talking Kodiaks. This is Kodiak number 96, I think, or something like that. The man on my right there is a longtime buddy from Switzerland, and he flies that thing regularly. I think he's made 6 trips so far from Switzerland to Alaska, and he's coming again this next year. So we go nose to nose. The Kodiak, when I did the engine conversion for the Otter there, was thought to be the top, the new replacement for the Otter. And it's a great airplane. I like the Kodiak, but it's not a replacement for the Otter for what the Otter does.
So, Captain Paul, I believe you were quoted saying, "There is nothing I would rather do than put those wings on and fly away to another new place, especially if no one has ever been there before."
That's my passion, yeah.
And it shows from all of these pictures. I mean, these are untouched places.
Yeah, I mean, you look what you see. You know, here in this particular picture here, this mountain had just collapsed, and there's a big snow that came down. I mean, that's monstrous. And with the bush area, you could fly over that in a Learjet and look at it, right? But you're not going to really get the feel. But look at here. I just landed there right beside it.
Wow.
And you get out and you get to see it. And so that's what we really like to do, is to really, go out and explore.
That is true freedom.
I can't say enough that I love airplanes. I love to, it'd be interesting to fly around Saudi Arabia here, unbelievable. But for me, what the airplane is a tool. It's a tool to go do something that I really like to do. So this is the North Gulf Coast, the farthest, most northern part of the Pacific Ocean. And it's a beach called the Lost Coast. This is inside the brains of a whale. It's a whale skull. So once again, the bush flying enables you to find things that you don't get to see very often. Where did that come from? That's a surprise. Sultan, all right. Yeah, fabulous.
So what's the story behind this flight?
So this is in 1986, a long time ago, and we're out on the snow, obviously landed on wheel skis, and we're going skiing.
While your airplane actually just went skiing as well, right?
And here we're on top of a mountain. This is still one of the, over all the years, and I mean this, of all the different things I've done with guests. We go out almost every single day, but this was one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had, and it was with Sultan. And we climbed this mountain, and we had a whole entourage of people, including guides and some of his people and all that, and he just kept falling off to the side, and we just kept going up, and I kept asking Sultan, you want to turn around? You know, we're getting a long ways back to the lodge, and he kept saying, no, we're farther up, let's go. So you can see the top of the mountain there, and we get to the top, but it's not the top. And the top is like over there and way up there, and I said, you know, if we go up to the top of there, it's going to be dark till we get back. And he says, let's go. So it was really a lot of fun.
It looks beautiful. So, Captain Paul, I believe you have a video to show us, correct?
Yeah, do you want to put that on now?
Yes. Do you mind if we please put the video of Captain Paul? I mean, we cannot get enough of seeing these pictures. Honestly, my brain is just blown away from the freedom behind it. I don't see a runway. I don't see any constraints. And this is true independence, what I see right here.
I'm sorry?
This is true independence, what I see right here.
Yes, it's, you know, it's the biggest. So let's go.
I know exactly where we're going. Ready to go, dude? Ready to go, dude?
This is my son-in-law. He's an Alaskan airline pilot now. His second generation. His father was the chief pilot for Alaska Airlines.
She come out to break the night when the pink sky's waving goodbye. She come out to break the night, leaving no traces around. She's trying to free her reckless heart. She's trying to be as light as some breeze.
It is the only way of life, huh?
A bush pilot, yeah, what is a bush pilot? Somebody that lands in the bushes, no. We do a very unique type of flying in that it is, we never land anywhere that would be considered a real runway. We land in mountaintops, on river bottoms, sandbars, beaches, anywhere basically. And it takes a different type of training for that. You have to be, you fly by feeling instead of by numbers, and it takes a long time, a lot of experience. There are few people that do it very well, and we do here.
Yeah, bush pilots are people that love exploring. They love getting out there. Love really exploring Earth with aviation and exploring the edges of aviation safely.
In true bush flying, you are picking the spot, you are analyzing the spot, whether it's suitable to land and whether you're going to take off again. And that's kind of bush flying. And landing someplace where nobody has ever landed before. Once somebody lands there, now the mystery's gone, you know.
Yeah, you're filming all these right now. Go fast. I'd say growing up, it seemed very normal to be in a family of bush pilots, but it was, since I was like 5 days old, I've been in and around bush planes. So for me, it's like, hey Dad, can I borrow the plane instead of the car?
Show up that area today.
No cars, just airplanes.
Well, Super
huh?
Cub's an amazing device. It was built in the mid-50s, and they have not been able to make anything better. They're still doing it. There are people that do experimental type aircraft to try to compete with these airplanes, and Mr. Piper, who designed the Super Cub, did a near perfect deal. And I tell everybody that if I could only have one airplane in the entire world, from a 747 to an A-Star helicopter, it'd be a Super Cub, because They're simple, they perform amazingly well, and in a lot of ways it's like strapping on wings and you become a bird.
Well, the Super Cub is, it's a super sturdy airplane, kind of the Jeep of the sky. You know, they're very durable and can do some amazing things.
The Super Cubs in particular, they always feel like a magic carpet to me because it's kind of like they're a transport tool. They get you to where you want to be, and that's the biggest thing for me. I love the sheer joy of flying itself,
That's my son.
but for me it's the access
All your family are
and
pilots.
the land where you can spend days and days or weeks trying to get somewhere on foot, and then you hop in one of these little guys and you're there in an hour. So it's this time machine.
There's been modifications to the Super Cub over the years, and one of the best ones is the big tires that we use, and they actually enable us to do things that in my dad's era we weren't able to do. Make it a lot safer. If you misjudge an area and it's a little bit rougher, or rocks are bigger than you thought they were, those tires make it a much safer operation.
Where are we?
We are in the heart of the Wrangell St. Elias National Park, which is the largest protected landmass on the planet. It's a spectacular place, over 13 million acres of wilderness, true wilderness.
And what is true wilderness?
Oh man, that's a horrible question.
What is true wilderness? Well, there's not much of it left. To me, true wilderness has to be places that ideally no one's ever been, and so you're the pioneer, you're the explorer, you're the person that is seeing it for the first time, and that means it's unpredictable. You don't know for sure what's around the next corner. You don't know, what you're going to run into. But it still has to be a bit unknown to be true wilderness.
Well, this is a Glock 45 auto for bears. The most important thing is a Snickers bar for when people get hangry on hikes. That's the Snickers bar. And skin cancer is a real killer. Everybody use sunblock. It's important. Yeah. So a big thing on safety, sunblock, Snickers, and the occasional 45 auto.
Alaska airline pilot.
Grizzly bears.
What do I love about bush flying? To me, the airplane is a tool. The airplane is a tool to get into the wilderness. I love wilderness, I love wild places, I love exploring. To be able to land and get into some place that maybe no one's ever been, and explore true wilderness, that's what I enjoy.
The type of flying we do is very free. I would say that's the biggest benefit, is just the freedom we have to go wherever we want.
It's a good question. Honestly, what I love flying the most is access to remote places you can't get to otherwise.
I love to be able to
That's our
get a
oldest
different
daughter. She
perspective
runs
on the
Salsa,
world,
too.
kind of a bird's eye view.
And of course
see
she's a
what's going
pilot.
on. There's no boundaries, so you can go up, down, sideways, circles, whatever you want to do.
And she's going to make me a grandpa
Total
in a
freedom.
couple months.
You know, there's north, south, east, and west, and you can go any direction, and every day you find new places to go to, new things to see, because it's always changing. You know, the landscape here changes on a daily basis with the ice and the water, and some place you landed last week doesn't even exist this week.
Can't even believe that.
I just feel really privileged to have a job like this. A lot of people tell me that I got the best job in the world, and I agree. So I get to go out every day with meet people from all over the world and explore new places. And for me, it's I have as much fun as they do.
Honestly, all I want to do now is just go to Alaska and live in the wilderness with you.
Well, I'd like to have a Super Cub and go explore Saudi Arabia.
I mean, your story is incredible. Your family story is incredible. How you met your wife, Donna, and she's also a pilot. Your entire family are aviators. My last question to you, Paul, prior to opening the stage for Q&A. Do you consider this a job, a life, or a passion?
It's a lifestyle. So it's also a job, of course, but it's it doesn't have anything to do with necessarily making money. It's a passion.
I love your answer. Do we have any questions from the stage? Yes. Prince Sultan, if we could please have a microphone over there.
I have a comment. Thank you very much, Paul. The experience is much, much more than what you see on a video. I don't encourage people to go to Alaska, really. Just leave it alone. But I think Paul forgot the most important part of my visit in '86 and in 2019. And for Saudis, that's a very critical part that you should not have forgotten. You know what it is?
I bet I know what it is.
What is it?
The meal you cook.
What did you eat?
Kabsa, طبعا.
Oh, in Alaska.
In Alaska.
Oh,
And
wow.
I did one in the South Pole. And there was 4 kinds of rice I used in the South Pole. The meat was frozen. I threw everything in one pot. And the plane came to pick us up. And I had a friend who really wanted to get out. And the plane would only keep the engines, the C-130, running for 15 minutes. And I said, I'm not going without eating the kabsa in South Pole. So I don't cook really. I just do it once a year.
Oh, you cook good.
So this year we did, well, remember, '86 we did one and it came out not bad. And this year came out really good.
And my mom, alias Granny, still talks about his cooking.
About the kabsa?
And that's a big thing because she's a world-famous cook, especially for her cookies.
And also, the mountain we climbed took us 11 hours. And I put my name on the top. So the name is on the top.
And it's still there.
On the weather station.
What's it called
34 years.
Mount Sultan, of course.
Allah.
But Paul and the family, they're my family. And I remember your dad, and I remember, of course, your mom is very energetic lady. She's a marathonist, and this is a great family.
It truly is.
Really great. I mean, I felt right at home, and the flying, we had like 10 airplanes lined up. So we didn't do anything except fly and hike, and 3-4 days, and that's all we got this year, but coming in the summer, inshallah.
I mean, we cannot get enough of these pictures and of your story and of your incredible family. I was talking to Donna 2 days ago. I'm sorry to put you on the spotlight, Donna, but your story is also incredible and how you met Captain Paul as well. If I could please request for you to just reiterate that story for our incredible audience today, and your individual story also of being an aviator up until you met Captain Paul, because your family story is beautiful. If we can please have a microphone over here. Captain Donna.
I went to Alaska the day after I graduated from college. I landed in Fairbanks on a big jet, stood on the ground and knew I'd come home. And I drove heavy equipment. I worked on the pipeline. I did all kinds of things, but I soon learned that the only way to get around Alaska is by air. So I worked 4 different jobs, saved all my money, quit them all, and got my pilot's license in 2 weeks. Yeah, that
True
was,
story.
yeah. I
In a Super Cub,
yeah.
tail dragger.
Yeah, yeah. And then I got a job flying for the government out in the bush, very far in the bush, 42 villages. I explored in the horrid, horrid weather, unbelievable weather of western Alaska, and met him along the way, and he let me fish on his commercial fishing boat for free. And 3 years later, I had to marry him to get any money out of him. So
That's a beautiful marriage.
yeah, there we go. And he's the
38
pilot.
years this year.
Yeah, and it's been great.
Your story is incredible.
Yeah.
We thank you so much for being a part of Saudi's Hangar Talks.
Okay,
And
I
we
want,
thank you so
I
much.
want to say something
Yes.
to Sultan
Yes.
about. He made an impact on our lives more than anybody else has through all these years, and we've had a lot of people there. He could have anything, but he values going out in the wilderness. doing physical things and doing his own stuff. And we really, that is so rare. And we appreciate that, Sultan. You set a standard pretty high for all the rest of our guests.
He
So
truly
thank you.
did. Thank you, and thank you, Your Royal Highness, and thank you, Captain Paul, and your beautiful
you so
family.
much.
Thank you.